How does a former bus driver rise to become one of the most controversial political leaders of the modern world? Nicolás Maduro ruled a nation with the largest proven oil reserves on earth. Yet under his leadership, Venezuela fell into one of the deepest economic and humanitarian crises in recent history. Loved by his supporters and strongly criticized by his opponents, this is the story of Nicolás Maduro. Nicolás Maduro was born on November 23, 1962, in Caracas, Venezuela. He grew up in a working-class family and did not follow a traditional academic path. Before entering politics, Maduro worked as a bus driver and later became a trade union leader. His experience among ordinary workers shaped his political beliefs and helped him build a strong connection with the working class. Maduro's life changed when he joined the political movement led by Hugo Chávez. As a loyal supporter, he quickly rose through the ranks of government. He served as a member of parliament and later became Venezuela's foreign minister, representing the country on the international stage. Over time, he earned Chavez's full trust and was appointed vice president. In 2013, following the death of Hugo Chavez, Nicolás Maduro was chosen as his successor. He won the presidential election by a narrow margin and promised to continue Chavez's socialist vision, known as Chavismo. From the beginning, his leadership was disputed, and political tensions inside Venezuela increased rapidly. As president, Maduro expanded state control over the economy and continued social welfare programs focused on housing, healthcare, and education. Supporters viewed him as a defender of national sovereignty and a protector of the poor. Critics, however, accused him of concentrating power, weakening democratic institutions, restricting the media, and silencing political opposition. Despite Venezuela's vast oil wealth, the country's economy collapsed. Oil production declined sharply, hyperinflation destroyed the national currency, and shortages of food, medicine, and basic necessities became widespread. Millions of Venezuelans were forced to leave the country in search of safety and opportunity. Maduro blamed foreign sanctions for the crisis, while critics pointed to corruption, poor management, and policy failures. Mass protests erupted across Venezuela, often met with a strong response from security forces. International pressure grew as many countries questioned the legitimacy of Maduro's elections. The United States and several allies imposed sanctions, further isolating Venezuela from the global financial system. Maduro also faced serious international allegations, including accusations of drug trafficking and narco-terrorism by U.S. authorities. He denied all charges, calling them politically motivated attacks. As relations with Western nations deteriorated, Maduro strengthened alliances with countries such as Russia, China, and Iran. Today, Nicolás Maduro remains one of the most polarizing figures in global politics. To his supporters, he represents resistance against foreign intervention. To his critics, he symbolizes authoritarian rule and economic collapse. His legacy continues to divide opinions, and Venezuela's future remains uncertain. The story of Nicolás Maduro is not just the story of one man, but of a nation still searching for stability, recovery, and hope. How does a former bus driver rise to become one of the most controversial political leaders of the modern world? Nicolás Maduro governed a nation with the largest proven oil reserves on earth. Yet under his leadership, Venezuela experienced one of the deepest economic, political, and humanitarian crises of the 21st century. To some, he is a symbol of resistance against foreign influence. To others, he represents authoritarian rule and national collapse. This is the full story of Nicolás Maduro. Nicolás Maduro was born on November 23, 1962, in Caracas, Venezuela. He grew up in a modest, working-class household and did not follow a traditional academic career. Instead, his early life was shaped by labor, discipline, and political activism. Before entering government, Maduro worked as a bus driver in Caracas. During this time, he became actively involved in labor unions, where he gained experience organizing workers and speaking against inequality. These early years formed the foundation of his political identity. Maduro's political rise began when he joined the movement led by Hugo Chávez, a former military officer who promised radical change in Venezuela. Chávez's message of socialism, nationalism, and anti-imperialism resonated strongly with Maduro. As a loyal supporter, Maduro quickly rose within the movement. He became a member of parliament and later served as Speaker of the National Assembly. His discipline, loyalty, and communication skills made him a trusted figure within Chavez's inner circle. In 2006, Maduro was appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs. In this role, he represented Venezuela on the world stage and strengthened ties with countries that opposed U.S. influence, including Cuba, Russia, China, and Iran. His foreign policy focused on promoting a multipolar world and challenging Western dominance. Over time, Maduro became one of Hugo Chávez's most reliable allies, eventually being named vice president in 2012. When Hugo Chávez died in 2013 after a long battle with cancer, Venezuela entered a period of uncertainty. Chávez publicly named Nicolás Maduro as his political successor. Shortly after, Maduro ran for president and won the election by a very narrow margin. From the beginning, his presidency was controversial. The opposition questioned the election results, and political divisions inside Venezuela grew stronger. As president, Maduro promised to continue Chávez's socialist project, known as Chavismo. His government expanded state control over key industries and maintained large social welfare programs aimed at housing, healthcare, and education. Supporters believed these policies protected the poor and defended Venezuela's sovereignty. Maduro often presented himself as a leader standing against foreign interference and economic pressure. However, critics argued that Maduro concentrated power, weakened democratic institutions, and restricted freedom of expression. Opposition leaders were arrested or forced into exile, independent media outlets were shut down or heavily regulated, and elections were widely criticized by international observers. Political tension became a permanent feature of Venezuelan life. Despite possessing enormous oil wealth, Venezuela's economy collapsed. Oil production declined dramatically due to mismanagement, lack of investment, and corruption. Hyperinflation followed, rendering the national currency nearly worthless. Ordinary citizens struggled to afford food, medicine, and basic necessities. Long lines at grocery stores became common, and hospitals faced severe shortages. As conditions worsened, millions of Venezuelans left the country, creating one of the largest migration crises in modern history. Families were separated, and neighboring countries struggled to manage the influx of refugees. Maduro blamed international sanctions for the crisis, particularly those imposed by the United States and its allies. His critics, however, argued that years of poor economic policy and corruption were the real causes. Public anger led to massive protests across Venezuela. Demonstrations were often met with a strong response from security forces. Reports of human rights violations drew condemnation from international organizations. Many governments refused to recognize the legitimacy of Maduro's later elections, calling them unfair and uncompetitive. International pressure intensified when the United States accused Nicolás Maduro and several senior officials of involvement in drug trafficking and narco-terrorism. A financial reward was placed on information leading to his arrest. Maduro denied all allegations, claiming they were politically motivated attempts to remove him from power. As relations with Western countries deteriorated, Venezuela deepened its alliances with Russia, China, Iran, and other strategic partners. In recent years, Nicolás Maduro's leadership has remained a major to